In this video, I'll be going through character-specific optimizations for Kanami and Kokona, so meaning their passives, their skills, and their ultimates. I would like to repeat once again that these are not fundamental to good sniper gameplay, and are only meant to be add-ons on top of your fundamentals if you are looking to extract more value out of your gameplay. Nevertheless, I hope my tips can help you here. Kanami's active scan not only scans the enemies and utility that is in front of it, it's actually able to scan behind as well. So for example, if I were to place this scan on the corner of this edge, you can see that the enemies behind are also getting scanned. As long as they're able to see some amount of the scan. I am not exactly sure where the anchor points are, but some amount. So this also works for, lower half. So this just generally increases the range of your scan, extends the range of your scan, and lets you see more, which is very useful on certain maps, which I will show examples of when we get to the maps videos. However, just take note that whenever you're using these scans, even though it scans more, it also means that there are more players that are able to break the scan early, which might actually be detrimental to you. Another way to use the active Q is to use it as a shield as well as a scan. So in this situation, you still scan behind, but since you're able to see through it, and the players are scanned, you're able to shoot through the scan while they're unable to shoot you because the scan will be absorbing the damage instead. So 99% of the time, you're still going to be better off just using your scan for coverage to see where enemies are to help your team execute. But in situations where dueling is your main priority, this can be a very useful technique. So for example, you might set up this shield in order to catch someone who will approach you. You are sure that they will approach. Or if there's a sniper that is like looking straight at you and you want to steal the angle back from them, you want to force them to take their shot, you can also set this shield up and peek them again, right? And they're unable to shoot you. But more importantly, more useful is in defuse situations with a few people remaining. So for example, if there was a bomb in this corner and there's an enemy that is only one enemy that can fight back, so a DMR or a sniper, you can safely pressure them to get off the bomb, for example, if you were to just set up the shield. Either they have to get off the bomb to break the scan, in which case mission accomplished, they got off the bomb, or if they were to ignore the scan, you're able to get a free shot on them. Right? You're able to get a free shot on them. Additionally, if you have 50% node HP, in the Kokona matchup, this means that your scan will have 150 health instead of a usual 100. Which means that Kokona will need a full charge in order to break this in one shot. Which can be very useful and gives you an additional shot if they are unprepared for it. And another small note, the legendary skin's active Q is actually much harder to see through and is much less transparent. If you were to have a regular skin with a regular scan, right, it's actually more transparent and you're able to see through it easier, right? A common misconception for Kanami's passive skill is that this is always a team scan, right? That your teammates will always be able to see this scan and it will always show up on your teammates minimap. This is actually not true. This only applies after you get Awakening 1, dealing extra damage and revealing enemies. The scan that you see when you do not have A1 is only for yourself. Your teammates are unable to see this and it will not show up on your minimap. Right? So when you are able to scan someone with your passive skill without A1, it might be worth to just ping the corner that you have seen them, because your teammates will not know otherwise. Another way to use Kanami's Awakening 1 dealing AoE damage on bullet landing is to use it to break low health utilities that are around corners safely. So for example, if there's a Tattletale around a corner that you can't normally see, right? If you hear it going down or you suspect that it's around this corner, you can shoot the adjacent wall to do 10 damage to break the Tattletale, because Tattletale, Interceptor and Shield Arrow all only have 10 HP. The minimum damage for A1 is actually 5. Right, so it's very likely you are able to break this from a range, and if you don't break it, it will still be scanned and you can just take another shot to break it again. Right, so there's a Shield Arrow over here, you can safely take it out instantly. Another tempting target to break with your Kanami A1 is Michelle's turret, which has 40 health. To be able to shoot it twice at minimum and break it instantly without using any of your cooldowns or any other utility. However, depending on the placement of this Michelle turret and your access to the adjacent corner, this might even take up to 5 to even 6 shots to break this. So based on the damage you have dealt, you should consider whether or not it is a good idea to be using so much of your time and attention to break it. However, just having information on the turret itself, where it is located and whether or not it's active, is already very valuable information. So shooting it once, selling your information and to shoot it once could be quite valuable. A small thing to note though is that when the turret is out, Michelle is out of range of a turret, when it's not active, it actually looks different from when it is active, right? The legs will spread out. So this information can be very, very helpful for you on a lurk or to guide your team to execute onto a site. A small detail that is useful to know as a Kanami with Awakening 1 is the damage display location when you deal damage to enemies. Right? As you can see, when I do damage to enemies, the large damage display will show up to the right. Right? And the small damage display shows up directly above an enemy. So this is most useful when trying to locate invisible enemies, right? So for example, Flavia in Ultimate, or Yvette, or Nobunaga A2, the pylon, right? So you can either aim to the left of the big damage display and you know that's where they are, or they are just directly below the large damage number. Aside from applying debuffs, another effect of Kanami's ultimate is a gravitational pull, pulling enemies towards the center at 1 meters per second. This does not depend on the distance between the enemies and the center of the ultimate. The pull strength is the same at 1 meters per second. Right? So aside from just improving your coverage, there are other considerations you can use by abusing this pull. For example, instead of using your ultimate just to cover area, you can use it to pull enemies outside of cover and make it more awkward for them. Usually this has very little trade-off in terms of coverage, but there are many other situations where you can decide to trade off some coverage in order for the pull to be more effective. So for example, let's say the enemies are trying to retake this choke point and they want to come in, right? In maximizing coverage, you might decide to place your ult here so that it will cover more of site, which I expect them to come in. However, if you sacrifice a bit of coverage and place it behind, instead of being pulled forward at 1 meters per second, they'll be pulled backwards at 1 meters per second, which is a difference of 2 meters per second, making their approach into the choke point slower and easier to defend against. That's one example. Or for example, let's say your team is rushing an isolated player, right? Instead of placing it out somewhere far back so they can catch the player's backside as well, which will help this person escape, you can also consider placing it near your team, even though the coverage isn't as good on the enemies, to make sure that this one player is slower on the escape, which might culminate in a kill that is more important. You can see the effect of the gravitational pull more clearly in this clip. So when they are getting pulled away, it is very, very sluggish. But when they come in, it's actually quite fast, right? It is a directional pull. Another very small detail about Kanami's ultimate is that the hologram that Kanami produces is at the same height as the player, right? So you can use the Kanami's ultimate hologram as a reference for head height, and you can use that to help you estimate head height. So closer characters tend to have the head height to be higher in this elevated example, and further characters will have it lower. You can use the Kanami ultimate in order to estimate, right? In order to estimate head height. Kanami has some useful animation cancels on her skill and her ultimate that you can also try to abuse. So for these to work, you need sidestepping mode to be placed on hold. It does not work on toggle whatsoever. Alright, so how this cancels work is that when you land on the floor, right? When you jump and land on the floor, you want to press paper immediately. So for example, and I can act immediately, right? I'm using the Digger to make it easier to see. And this works for the ultimate as well. And you are able to cancel all of the follow-up animation. So this is most useful for the Kanami ultimate because usually the animation is quite long. The scan to some extent is quite long as well, right? This does not work if you were to press too early and you're unable to go into paper anymore, right? So you might want to learn the proper timing to get as fast as possible. So for my timings for the ultimate, in this arm swing, right, after the halfway point is when I start jumping. Yep. Just be a little bit careful that you do not jump out of habit trying to do the cancel behind cover. This can get you killed, right? Also note that after you use your ultimate, you actually don't need to time the paper. After you click, right, you can just hold paper and it'll just automatically time for you, right? So you're more concerned with the timing where you jump. Because let's say if you're going to try to get ready to jump and everything, you're just wasting time regardless, right? So you kind of need to practice this timing. And it's the same with the Kanami's active Q, right? All you need to do is to hold paper after clicking in order to get a timing, right? Regardless of when your timing is. This is just useful in general to just cut your timing slightly and be able to shoot faster. For Kokona's animation cancels, you are going to need either one or both of these to be on hold. As long as either one of them are on hold is good enough, even if it's not sidestepping mode, right? So for the drone cancels, you're actually able to cancel the drone animation at any point, right? So you're able to just outright cancel your usage of the drone if you want. But if you want to give the drone to other people and to eliminate the follow-up animation, there's a timing. So for the self, it's after a green glow, right? After Kokona spreads her arms, there's a green color glow, right? That green color glow. After that comes out, your drone is on you. For teammates, however, it's only right after you swing your arm and it's quite fast. So in this case, I don't let my arm swing, they don't get it. And I just let my arm swing and they get drones, right? Note that these drone cancels work even if you are in the air, right? And for myself, they still works in the air. Kokona can also cancel her ultimate animation and cancel her out outright even after playing the voice line. So in this case, I have the master volume set up higher so that you can hear temporarily. So after I click, it will play the voice line and I'm going to press X or your ultimate button to cancel before the animation goes through, right? So I can cancel this at any time. And it will still make the voice line and it will be heard by the entire lobby. So this can be useful to bait enemies into making rushes without you actually using your utility, and this might get you an extra kill or make them make mistakes that they otherwise shouldn't, right? Give them false urgency. And if I don't let it go, you can see I use my ultimate and he's getting buffed. So yeah, using your fake ultimate to make the voice line to trick enemies into rushing you is a potential use. There are two other things about Kokona's passive that you should know. I cannot demonstrate them because I do not have a second player, so I will just be explaining them. You can still tap players with your passive to resurrect them, right? So if you have a downed teammate, you're able to tap them while you're in the air, right? And you're also able to cancel the animation faster by pressing paper while you're landing, right? But I don't have a second player, so I cannot show you. Kanami's A3 is known to increase movement speed, weapon usability, and rate of fire. But aside from movement speed, these are benefits that we tend to associate with our teammates who have continuously firing guns, like rifles, DMRs, shotguns. Right? But these do have benefits for Kanami herself as well that you should be aware of. Right? So your ADS speed is actually faster under A3. So for example, you can see this is without A3, and this is with A3. Right? It is faster, quite significantly as well. This also increases your weapon change speed, right? So you're able to shoot your secondary faster. You can see the difference, right? It also increases your reload speed for both weapons. So let me just take a shot, right? I'll show you without. Okay, and now with. Alright, that's much faster. And this is also much faster. It also does increase your, it does make your rechambering slightly faster, but because of the recoil animation, the benefits are not as much. So it's not very noticeable, it's quite slight. Let's change to Ember Speed, for example, and to show the rate of fire increase for your secondary weapon. So without, right, you can hear that. And now with. Right, let me just wait for the spawn. It's about 10% faster, and your reload is also faster. So with this knowledge, you can think that, you can also consider that holding your ground while under the influence of A3 might be more beneficial. It's a bit more, you can afford to be a bit more aggressive in holding a space, right? Particularly for Athena and Ignis users, right? One thing that we like to do is this, right? To stay in paper and shoot, right? To stay in paper and shoot. But the benefits of the A3 for this kind of playstyle is more minimal, because you're spending more time in this paper transitioning, right? You're spending more time in this paper transitioning, the rate of fire increase is not as pronounced. Right, so you can consider, if you want to be aggressive with your A3, to just fire more, just fire faster, right? And you reload faster as well. So this might be something you want to consider. And just a minor note, A3 does not affect anything about the sword or any melee weapon. So your swing speed, your pull out speed, everything, your recovery is all the same. So yeah. Alright, that will be it for this episode covering the utility of the two snipers. There are some niche interactions and facts that I did not go through in the interest of time, so if you would like to learn more, there is still more interesting tidbits that you can find out on your own. Alright, so if I remember anything new, or if I just learn anything new, I will just make addendum videos to this video as well, so we can all learn together. If you know any more tricks that I was not mentioned, or then you can leave it in the comments. I will try to read them and maybe include them in addendum videos if I have enough to say. In any case, I'll see you. The next episodes will be on the maps themselves, map specific tag and positions, and yeah, I'll go through more application on the maps themselves. In any case, I hope this video has helped you. Kanami is adorable, and I'll see you next time. No, Kanami is so adorable though, holy hell.